everyone and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Katarina. I film videos about project panning, vegan and cruelty-free beauty, and I'm just trying to enjoy my own makeup collection here on my channel. So if that is something that is interesting to you, I would really love it if you subscribed. Today's video is going to be my 9th update for my Painted Palette 2020. So this year I have been panning the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance eyeshadow palette. Today we are going to take a look into my progress with this palette during the past month, and also in the end of the video I will share with you some plans that I do have for the rest of this year when it comes to panning eyeshadows, and also I will reveal what I do want to do next year. So let's just get into my progress with this palette first. Let me show you what my palette looked like a month ago. And this is what my palette looks like right now. So as you saw from the picture from last month, there wasn't any new pans to hit. I have already hit pan on all of the shades, and as you can see there's no finished shade, but I do have some visible progress with some of the shades. So before going through all of the shades and how many times I have used them, I want to say that I did change my goal that I did set for myself for this month. So in the last update I set a goal of using golden ochre. I hope that is the correct way to say it. This is one of those words that I knew I don't quite say it right, but I didn't know how to really pronounce it, so thank you so much Iris for correcting me. So golden ochre, burnt orange and real gar were the shades that I did want to use at least 5 times during the past month, and then the rest of the shades I wanted to use at least 3 times during the past month. But there has been now a couple of shades that I have been really focused on, and then some shades I have not used at all during the past month. But let's just go through the shades. The shades that I have been really focused on during the past month have been golden ochre and raw sienna. Golden ochre I have used 14 times during the past month. I have tallied my uses to the back of the palette, so if you're wondering why I'm like peeking there. With this one I do have most visible progress. I have hit side pan on this, and also there's just a little bit of product left in the upper left corner. So really good progress with this one. I'm wearing this today as transition set. To be honest, golden ochre is one of those shades that I could do without it. On my skin tone, because I'm quite pale, this one works as transition shade, but I might as well just go in with something like raw sienna, because these shades are so blendable, so I could skip this if I wanted to. But of course I have wanted to make progress on it, so I have been using it as transition shade. I also did wear it a couple of times as a lid shade, but it's not my favorite shade to wear as lid shade. Usually if I want a matte lid I'm just going to use a matte cream. Then raw sienna is another shade that I have been focused on. This one I used 12 times during the past month, and this is what I do have in my crease today. So with this one I think the visible progress is not that great, but I do think that where I have product it is thinner right now what it was a month ago. So the pan hasn't expanded, but I have still made progress with this shade. Then the shades that I used the most after these two were burnt orange and real gar. I used both of those shades 4 times, and I do think that I used both of them in same looks. I mean, all of the shades that I have talked about so far, I could just layer them all in same look and they would go really well together, but I just don't feel it's necessary. I feel that would be almost like wasting the product if I wanted to layer them so much, because I do think the result is going to be pretty much the same if I put raw sienna and burnt orange both to my crease, or if I put just one of those shades to my crease. So I just don't think it's necessary to use both of them in the same look. But I do think that burnt orange and real gar go well together, so I have been using them together. Real gar, I will say, I pulled in my Project 10 Uses roulette. So my goal is to use the shade for 10 times, and I really wish that I could be done with the 10 uses by the next update of my project 10 uses roulette, so that would be around 20th of October. So yeah, I will need to wear it quite a bit to get there. Then another shade that I have used in September is red ochre, that I used only twice. But Antique Bronze and Venetian Red I didn't use at all in September. I'm not too mad at myself though, because these two shades are something that I have been really focused on previously this year. So Antique Bronze I used a lot in August, and then Venetian Red I have been using a lot throughout almost the entire year. And to be honest, I'm pretty burned out with all of the pinky looks, even though Venetian Red is a shade that I truly do enjoy. I like it way more than Love Letter that is now gone. So yeah, those are my uses with the palette, and let's talk a little bit about what I want to do with this palette for the rest of this year and what are my planning plans for future. So I have been talking about a lot how I don't really want to do a year-long Panthat palette anymore after this palette. I have just learned that usually after 6 months or so, I'm starting to be more bored with a panning project, especially with a palette like this, because I can no longer hit new pans. It's getting a little bit boring for me, because hitting pan is so exciting, but then trying to finish the shade, it can be so frustrating. Because, for example, with raw sienna, I have used it quite a bit during the past month, but the visible progress is just not that good, and there's still plenty of product left. I don't want to do a year-long Panthat palette anymore in future. Instead, I do want to do 6-month-long Panthat palette. I was wondering if a seasonal Panthat palette could be a great thing for me to do. That would mean I could rotate through my collection more. However, I don't think that in 3 months I could make as good visible progress with a palette that I want to. And I think 6 months is usually a time that I can hit pretty many new pans in a palette. But with a larger eyeshadow palette, I don't think I would get that bored with the palette if I pan it for 6 months. But after that, usually it starts getting more difficult for me with Panthat palette. I will start getting bored. I will admit that I am quite bored panning this palette at this point. I'm not going to stop, but I just have learned that a year-long Panthat palette is not something I would want to do in future. I have decided to start a palette of Amman series here on my channel. I won't start it quite yet, but I do want to start it in November, because this year I have bought some palettes that I do want to get use out of, and a couple of those palettes I feel are quite fall appropriate. So because of that, I don't want to wait until the beginning of next year to start the series, because then those palettes I wouldn't necessarily anymore want to use in winter or in spring. So that's why I want to start the series in November. And because of that, October is going to be the last month that I will be really focused on this palette. My goal will be to use this palette at least 5 times a week in October. There is one day in a week that I do want to use my Too Faced Chocolate Bar eyeshadow palette, because it is my oldest palette and it's in my 30 by 30 project pan. So I use that palette once a week, but other than that, I do want to use mainly this palette, or 10 maybe one day allow myself to wear something else, but at least 5 times a week is how often I do want to use this palette in October. And there's 2 shades that I really want to focus on in October. They are Burnt Orange and Real Gar. As I said, Real Gar is in my project 10 uses roulette, and I really want to be done with the 10 uses by the next update. So I do have a little bit under a month time to use the shade for 10 times. I'm sure I can do it. And Burnt Orange goes so well with Real Gar, and I wish I could hit side pan somewhere in Burnt Orange. But then after October I will start wearing this palette less, so I don't know anymore if it is realistic for me to even hit my goal of finishing these 3 shades. I want to do my best, but at the same time I do want to start rotating through my collection more already this year. It's time to push myself to get really good use out of this for the last month, and after that, even though I'm still going to keep panning this, I'm just not going to be using it that much. But yeah, that is where I am with the palette right now. I feel this is starting to get rambly, so thank you so much for watching this video and see you on my next one. Bye bye.